Hey guys, so today we have another Shop Hush video. This is on the Bad Habit Retro Love palette. So I'm going to use as many shadows as I can to create my entire face of makeup except for like foundation and lipstick. I did do a similar video previously on the Aura palette, so you can check that out if you are interested. And so this is the Retro Love palette, which is a dupe for the Anastasia Subculture palette. This has 14 eyeshadows in the palette and with a net weight of 13.9 grams altogether. So each pan would be about a gram. And this is made in China but is cruelty free. So this is how the packaging looks like. It does come in a unicarton box which has the same design on it, so if you lose the box it doesn't really matter because the ingredients and like the information is also on the back of the palette. So when finger swatching this palette on my arm, I thought that this palette had really nice pigmentation. The shadows do feel a little bit on the dry and powdery side, but they do blend out very nicely. So the only two shades that I thought looked a bit weird and out of place are Hippie and Pop. So Hippie is an olive green and Pop is like a cool toned brown. And when I swatched these shades, they kind of looked a bit muddy and out of place, but in the pan they look alright, like they go together with the color scheme. So I managed to do this entire look using 12 out of 14 of the shadows. So if you're interested in watching how I put together this look, then it's coming right up. So I'm first going to go in with Pop, which is like this cool toned brown shade, and I'm going to use this as an eyebrow color. As an eyeshadow, I think this shade would blend it really nicely because it is diffusing very nicely, especially in the front parts of my eyebrows. It is not super pigmented, so it's actually a nice transition shade, or you can pop it in your outer corners to darken up your eye look. Next, I'm going in with Peace, which is this peachy shade, and I'm placing it on my transition area, and this shade is blending out very nicely. And then I'm going to take Rebel, which is a mustard shade, and place it in the transition area as well, slightly below Peace. So far these shades have been quite sheer, but they blend out very nicely and they act as very nice transition shades. Now I'm taking Fab, which is like this orange toned mustard. It's a bit deeper than Rebel, and I'm packing it on the inner half of my eyelids. Again, the shade seems to be pretty sheer, like it is not full on pigmentation, so it might be nicer as a transition shade. I'm going to use my fingers and see if I can get better pigmentation with my fingers. Definitely got more color payoff using my fingers. So now I'm going to take Free Love, which is like a deep blue toned teal, and place it on the outer corners. This shade does have quite a bit of fallout if you put too much on your brush, but it's blending out pretty nicely. So as you can see, this shade is very pigmented and a little goes a long way. Now I'm going to take Revolution, which is the metallic bronze in the palette, and place it on the center of my lips using my fingers. So this is going to help tie the color scheme together and blend everything out so that it looks like a perfect ombre. This metallic shade is really pigmented and it packs a punch, and it is definitely high shine, so you do get that reflective metallic finish to it. Now I'm going to take the shade Rock and Roll, which is like a plummy purple, and place it on my lower lash line, and I'm focusing it more on the center and inner portions of my lower lash line. For my outer lash line, I'm using Maud, which is the teal green in the palette, and it is very similar to Free Love, which is the blue toned teal. So I'm placing it on my lower lash line and connecting it with the outer corners, and to be honest, there isn't much difference in terms of color once it's on your eyes. For my inner corners, I'm using the shade Icon, which is an iridescent green, and again, this is very high shine and metallic, so it gives a really nice glow to the inner corners. So this is the finished eye look, and at this point you can just leave it as this, add some lashes, but I'm going to line my eyes anyway with some liner and add some lashes. Now I'm going to try and contour using one of the brown shades. I'm thinking Pop or Youth. Youth is like a warm brown with some hints of red. So that's Youth, and I don't know, I wouldn't really use it as a contour shade. So maybe I'm going to try and add some Pop so that it cools the contour a bit. Alright, everything is starting to look a little bit muddy and it's not blending out very well on my cheeks. But then again, these are supposed to be used as eyeshadows, so you probably have an easier time blending these as eyeshadows instead of like face products. For blush, I'm going to use Flower Power, which is like this really peachy pink. And finally for highlights, I'm going to use Psychedelic, which is the iridescent pink in the palette, and just pop it on my cheekbones. So this is the finished look. For my lips, I'm wearing Give Me Glow Cosmetics Liquid Lipstick in Autumn's Soul. This is like a dark plummy purple shade and it really complements the entire look or the colors that I used today. There is a similar color in the palette called Nostalgia, which is a dark purple, which I did not get to use today. I also did not use Hippie, which is an olive green shade in this palette because I just couldn't really figure out where to put it on my look today. So the color scheme of this palette is an exact copy of the Anastasia Subculture palette. You have the teal and mustardy shades, and then you have some wearable colors like the plums, the browns, and the pinks, and you also have the iridescent metallic shades. So it is really more or less the same as the Subculture palette. The tones of it may be a little bit off, but it is not very obvious. This color scheme is really unique and it really encourages you to play around with color. I mean, you can still create a brown, neutral brown look using Pop, Youth, and Revolution. Those are the brown tones in this palette. And then you can also create a berry toned or pink eye look using Rock and Roll, Nostalgia, Flower Power, and Peace. So those are the pink tone kind of shades. And if you want to add some warmth to your look, you can always use the mustard shades, and the teal shades are really fun pops of color to venture outside of your normal eye makeup looks. Also, there are like 2 mustard and 2 teal shades that kind of look similar to each other, so I know they're trying to copy the Subculture palette, but because of how the color shows up, it doesn't really make sense for this particular palette to have 2 mustard and 2 teal shades because they look really similar when you apply them. I mean, in the Subculture palette it may be different, so yeah, I'm not too sure because I do not own the Subculture palette, but for this particular palette, I do think that they could have saved on those 2 shades and replaced it with something else. So after using 12 out of 14 of these shadows, I do think that these are decently pigmented and they pick up very nicely with the brush, and they also blend out very easily. So for the mid-tone or lighter shades such as the mustards or peachy colors, you are not going to get like super intense pigmentation as you would with the darker purples or teals in this palette. So that is nice if you're just placing it in your transition area to blend out, and if you need to pack it on, you can always use your fingers to intensify the colors if you need it to be like super intense. And the metallics in this palette are also really smooth and creamy, and they really glide on and give you a high shine reflection, so I really appreciate that for my metallic shades. I have to say about this palette in this video, you can definitely add it to your cart if you're intending to check anything out of ShopHush. And so yeah, thanks so much for joining me today, and I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. I'll see you guys soon in my next video. Bye bye!